recent months, Atlas Shrugged has received an unprecedented amount of media attention. It's been mentioned in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, by Rush Limbaugh, Stephen Colbert. And book sales have also skyrocketed. Atlas Shrugged is selling even more copies today than when it was first published. Yaron Brook is here with us at the Ayn Rand Institute to discuss the newly revived interest in Atlas Shrugged. So what do you make of this surge in popularity?
Well, I mean, this is fantastic. Atlas Shrugged is selling more copies today than ever in history by a lot more than when it first came out in 1957. It was a bestseller. In 2008 alone, it sold over 200,000 copies in the bookstore. And early this year, indications are it's selling at almost triple that rate. So it's really an exciting time. As you mentioned, Atlas Shrugged is mentioned in newspapers and blogs and on television. There's a big movement to discuss what's called going Galt. So there's a huge interest in Atlas Shrugged, and I think the reason is that we truly live in troubling times. I mean, people are worried, they're afraid. There are real problems out there, economic problems, social problems, political problems, and people are looking for answers. And people are being challenged to look for answers. And Atlas Shrugged, a lot of people who've never read it kind of know they should read it. They know it has answers. There's kind of that knowledge is in the culture somewhere. I've often met people who say, oh, I need to read that book. I know I need to read it. And I think those people are not going to read it because they're looking for answers and they're just searching everywhere. Second, a lot of people who read it years and years and years ago suddenly realize, hey, that book actually predicted what's going on today, at least at the economic level. The economy is declining. Government is blaming capitalism for the decline of the economy. Therefore, it's regulating even more, which will lead to further decline and further problems, which will be blamed on the free market. And then they'll take that opportunity to regulate even more. Businessmen are vilified. They are considered the real enemy and the real villain and the real cause of this crisis. All these things parallel what happened in Atlas Shrugged. So a lot of people who read it a long time ago are remembering that and are rereading the book right now. And of course, I think a lot of our efforts here at the Ayn Rand Institute, a lot of the efforts of people who read the books and word of mouth is out there. This is an important book right now to read. It has real answers to the real challenges and the questions that are facing every American today. This economic crisis is touching everybody, and everybody is looking for answers. So it's fantastic. What better place for people to look for answers than Ayn Rand's works, and of all of those, Atlas Shrugged is probably the best.
Are all of the conservatives who are promoting Atlas Shrugged really interested in Ayn Rand? They understand her writing?
I think that most of them are interested in Ayn Rand. I think they have some vague emotional connection to the works. They find them inspiring at some level. They understand ideas at some level, but it's very superficial. Very few of them really understand the philosophical issues that Atlas Shrugged deals with. And indeed, their explicit conservative ideas contradict Atlas Shrugged. Atlas Shrugged is about the importance of rational self-interest, of rational egoism, as a moral code that stands at the foundation of a free society and at the foundation of capitalism and at the foundation of business, all business activity. The conservatives, for the most part, are altruists ultimately. I mean, they might have a facade of self-interest, but ultimately there's some form of utilitarianism or Christians where taking care of one's neighbor is a prime moral responsibility, a prime moral importance to them. So they are deep down altruists, and their justification for capitalism ultimately is a utilitarian justification, not an Ayn Rand-like objectivist justification for capitalism in the sense of real individualism, real individual rights grounded in a true morality of rational self-interest. Only Ayn Rand has that connection. And believe me, I've never met a conservative that really understands the relationship between rational self-interest and capitalism and really understands Ayn Rand's ideas about rational self-interest. And then if you take what is rational self-interest ultimately grounded on? It's grounded on reason. Reason as man's means of knowing reality. Reason as man's means of survival. And the conservatives, for the most part, again, are religious. So their focus is on faith. Faith is the opposite of reason. Faith, faith is about reaching the point where you don't need any more reasons. You don't need reality. You're above reality. You take things on faith. You only take things on faith when there's no evidence. So the very fact that they are advocates of religion, of faith, makes them oppose a consistent approach, a consistent approach to reason, to philosophical questions, to questions about capitalism, to questions of morality. So their rejection of reason, at least to some extent, the rejection of reason makes it impossible for them ultimately to understand rational self-interest. The fact that they don't understand rational self-interest ultimately makes them not fully grasp what capitalism is about. And the problem is then they start compromising on capitalism, and those compromises are what lead us to the state of the world that we have today. After all, George Bush was supposed to be a conservative, and look where he's led us. And the reason is that he accepted the moral premises of the left. And when you accept the moral premises of the left, socialism is far more consistent with those than capitalism is. So you drift towards socialism. So, beware of the conservatives' interpretation of capitalism. I mean, it's great that they're doing free marketing for us. It's great that Rush Limbaugh is out there promoting Atlas Shrugged, because ultimately people are going to read the book and make their own value judgment about them. And I encourage you to read the book and to really evaluate it yourself and study it. And one of the things you could do on campuses is form a reading group, form a study group, and read Atlas Shrugged in depth and talk about it and challenge each other's understanding of it. And when you do that, you will realize how revolutionary Atlas Shrugged really is. It's not just about free markets. It's truly about a new revolutionary philosophy. It's really about a new revolutionary morality. And that's what makes it special. That's what makes it important. And that's what makes it really worth fighting for. So I encourage you all to go study it, get an in-depth, first-handed understanding of the book, and don't rely on the many interpretations that are out there, and certainly don't rely on the conservatives' interpretation of Atlas Shrugged.
What can students do to help promote this revival of interest in Ayn Rand?
Well, I think, again, tell people about it. Let people know that this is a book that's really relevant to what's going on right now. Let people know that this book has real answers, that not only is it prophetic in terms of the parallels with what is going on in the world, but it has real answers with regard to the cause of this crisis and the solution to the crisis. What will get us out of these problems, and not just at the political, economic level, much more fundamentally than that. I mean, the greatness of Atlas Shrugged is it's a philosophical novel. So it doesn't just deal with the political issue and economic issues. I mean, that would be huge if it just dealt with that, but what makes it such a great novel is it delves even deeper, and it goes into the moral, even epistemological causes of the crisis in the book, and I think parallels the crisis here. So the same moral, philosophical causes that are driving the events in Atlas Shrugged are driving the events that are happening today. So let people know that the book exists. Let people know that the book is important. Let people know that the book really has answers. Blog about it. Put it up on Facebook. Twitter about it. Do whatever you young guys do with technology to get this as virally out there, to get it to the point where everybody in the culture is talking about Atlas Shrugged. I think we've moved a long way towards that already, that there's a lot more that can be done, and probably the universities are the most important place to do it, because when you're in your teens and 20s, this is the opportunity to really open up a world to students of new ideas, of a new approach, and I think people are much more open when they're young to these kind of ideas than when they reach even their 30s, certainly their 40s or 50s, when they're a lot more locked in to the ideas that they have carried with them from their childhood. So really get this book, give it the prominence both on the web, but also on campus. Do a book display. Set up a book with a bunch of copies of Atlas Shrugged. Do a big poster celebrating Atlas Shrugged. Come up with some provocative statements, or take take some statements out of Atlas Shrugged that seem really relevant to what is going on in the world today. Put that on a poster or put that in a letter to the editor, to your student newspaper. I mean, there are a lot of things that you can do to help with that. And then, of course, bring speakers onto campus who can really talk about Atlas Shrugged, and again, talk about the philosophical message of Atlas Shrugged. What makes Atlas Shrugged revolutionary? What makes Atlas Shrugged unique? And why is it that Atlas Shrugged really is the solution to the problem? The ideas in Atlas Shrugged are the solution to the problems we face today in the culture. So speak, get speakers, get professional speakers out there, and and just make a lot of noise on campuses. I mean, campuses are built for making a lot of noise, for setting up displays, for putting up posters, for really marketing this book to your fellow students.